Hey everyone, welcome to the Oklahoma Venture Forum podcast. We have a special guest today. We have Piyush Patel, former CEO of Digital-Tutors. He's also an angel investor, best-selling author, and keynote speaker of the upcoming OVF Chairman's Award for Economic Impact event presented by Insperity on May 8th, 2019. Good to see you today, Piyush.
Great. Thanks for having me, Kyle.
You're going to be our keynote speaker for that event, but first we want to learn a little bit more about you, about your business background, and what people will learn by attending that event and hearing your keynote address. So describe your journey of Digital-Tutors from startup to your exit.
Oh, it's a wild roller coaster of any startup, right?
Right.
Anything that's startup based. So in a nutshell, I took $54 and turned it into a $45 million exit.
That's an amazing ROI.
With no investors, no debt.
Wow.
Real bootstrap. I mean, we're talking,
The definition of bootstrap.
Totally.
Yes.
Yeah.
Very good.
42 employees here in Oklahoma City, 500 around the world.
Right.
And through that period of time of 14 years of running that business, we only turned over 12 people.
Wow.
And,
Impressive.
we hired a lot of millennials and a lot of young people and very technical, smart people. And so we really figured out, wow, we've got this rhythm and formula figured out on how to engage, grow, and maintain these relationships with millennials.
Right.
And so that's really what I'm going to be speaking about is how to become an employer of choice and engage your millennial workforce.
Because that doesn't necessarily come easy or natural, right? It's work.
It's work. Like, you've got to be real focused on it.
And there was a point in running Digital-Tutors where you felt like you were doing a really poor job at it and sort of really addressed working with millennials and motivating employees and corporate culture, yes?
That's right. Yeah. So, it was just my wife and I. We started this little business, and then we added two of our close friends, and that all worked out great. Everybody could communicate, and we had a few more people, still easy to communicate. But once you get to about 12 people, where half of them you don't really have any history,
Right.
all of a sudden things like core values start to become important.
Sure.
Because up until then we were just working, and we figured the harder you work, the better you'll get at it, right? So I'll be honest with you, the first $1 million of revenue, we don't really know how it even came. We just kept showing up, right? We're too dumb to know what we didn't know. You just show up, we'll just keep working hard and it'll happen. And it happened. But going from 1 to 3, that's really hard.
Right.
Going from 3 to 10, even
Absolutely.
harder.
For sure.
You have to really over-communicate, really understand who you are, what you're about, what your mission is, what your values are, so you can hire to that.
Right. So the journey of any business, especially one that's being successful, where your first million was easy, but then it gets harder and harder, and then the challenges are different. You really had to adapt and change as the business and the industry changed with you, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So we focused on teaching people who make movies and video games. So this is a very savvy, technical, smart audience.
Right.
And so we had to market very differently. We had to approach the problem of this business model very differently. And yeah, it turned out pretty good.
So eventually you exited the company, you sold the company, stayed on for a while in a transitional role, but have done some things since then. What are you working on right now?
So I'm out speaking about my book that's out, Lead Your Tribe, Love Your Work. And it's really the story of how we built the company, but also real practical how-tos in terms of implementing these tools inside your business. And so that keeps me busy most of the days.
Right.
When I'm not doing that, we have a winery out in Napa that we use as our philanthropic component, kind of our social entrepreneur project.
Right.
Every single dollar that we make off that, we give away.
Wow,
So
very
we
nice.
Donate that to Oklahoma nonprofits.
And interestingly enough, I know from taking some vacations and I'm in our honeymoon in Napa, there are a lot of Oklahomans connected and in Napa, right?
That's right. That's right.
It's an amazing connection between the two.
Well, I think if you combine ag and you combine oil and gas, I mean, that's production, and you've got ag. Well, wine is kind of like that. It's ag and production.
Right. So you mentioned earlier that you, since exiting, that you wrote the book, Lead Your Tribe, Love Your Work. And some of the things that are in the book were practical and other tips. But what was your motivation, not just for that topic, but to actually write a book, to sit down and write a book from start to finish?
So I'm at this program at MIT, and there's 60 people in there from $1 or $2 million businesses all the way up to $1 billion. And we're all in there learning. And I'm sharing some of these things that we've done, and people are just taking crazy notes. And I'm thinking, this is not rocket scientists. You rocket science. You guys don't do this? And they're like, oh, we've never heard of this.
Right.
Things like onboarding your employees before they actually show up to work, right? Sending them their stuff a couple weeks ahead.
Sounds simple enough.
Spending a first half a day with a new employee.
Uh-huh.
I go, why would you do that? Well, I want them to understand it from me, not from somebody else. Oh, let me write that down. At which I walked out of there and somebody was like, you got to write a book.
Well, there you go.
And so there you go. Wrote a book.
So you're also currently the chairperson for the EO Accelerator here in Oklahoma City. Tell us all about what it is and what you guys are accomplishing over there.
So EO stands for Entrepreneurs Organization. It is roughly 14,000 members worldwide. To qualify for EO, you have to be the owner or founder and a business with at least $1 million in revenue.
Okay.
So it's a peer group for owners.
Right.
Well, that $1 million requirement excludes a lot of business owners.
Certainly.
And so we went back to the group and they've had this huge study on, well, wait a minute. What if we pair up people who've already hit $1 million with people who haven't and teach them how to do it? It helps our communities. It helps our membership. And so I've volunteered for the past 2 years to launch the Accelerator program here in Oklahoma City. And we take owners and founders between $250,000 in revenue to about $800,000 in revenue.
Wow.
With a goal of getting to $1 million. When you get to $1 million, you graduate. Now you're an EO.
There you go. And you come back and give back to others.
And then you come back and volunteer. That's right.
So you have started a business, bootstrapped a pure startup, and had an exit. You've written a book about that experience. You're now working in the accelerator space. You own a winery, doing philanthropic work. You have this great spectrum of information that you're going to bring to this keynote address for our event on May 8th, 2019, correct?
That's right. That's right.
So looking forward to hearing about that, hearing your keynote then, also business networking that will happen in the room on that day. We always end our podcast by asking our guests for a piece of advice, your favorite piece of advice you like to give entrepreneurs, business owners, investors, etc., about working and succeeding in Oklahoma.
Well, I'll share two things with you. One is Oklahomans have a very unique spirit to us. We're hardworking, resilient, and so not getting wrapped up on how you're going to exit your business, really focusing on how we're going to solve a customer's problem, because folks here are really good at that, and getting out of the way. Because if you disrupt the market, people will come to buy you, right? If that's your exit strategy, don't worry about a fictitious buyer that one day will buy your company. Right. Solve a customer's problem.
Certainly.
Right?
Be viable by being valuable.
That's right.
Very good.
That's right. And the second one I'll share with you is a graphic that I've seen forever. And I always saw the inspirational side of it, but now I understand the other side of it. And it's a real simple thing. It had a picture of a Lamborghini, and it said, if you want to drive a Lamborghini, quit asking Toyota drivers how to buy one.
Okay, that makes sense.
And forever I use that as just inspirational, but in reality, there is a component of that mentorship that if wherever you want to go, find somebody who's been down that road and ask them to mentor you down that process. And that's why I've kind of thrown my hat into the accelerator and dove deep in and said, okay, this is my best way to help other business owners reach their goals.
Very good. Thank you very much, Piyush, for being a guest on the Oklahoma Venture Forum podcast, and we are very much looking forward to your keynote address on May 8th.
Thank you very much.